template, cut it onto foam, make it a positive relief, to make a negative relief, to make your silicon mold. You know, once I remember watching a documentary on how to cast spells, and I sat there, I was like, oh my god, you went through like a positive relief, then a negative relief, then another positive relief, and then a final negative relief, and then you have cast a spell. Oh my god, that was too much effort, blah 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 blah. And now I'm just... Now I understand the process, and now I am horrified that I'm part of doing it. I don't. Casting is very good for making solid, durable things, and that you only have to make one of a thing before you can cast it again. However, as I said, actually, casting's not the worst. As I said, 3D modeling is the worst. Even SVG images, I'm about. Not my favorite, but like, I won't get too uppity if my job for the day is making a bunch of SVG images. I will get uppity if my job for the day is making STL files. God, you know, I actually downloaded a CAD thing so I could properly be all SVG happy and whatever, STL happy, and I could make everything all beautiful and so on, and I'm still disappointed and angry in myself for doing that, because now I'm forcing myself to be good, and I don't like that. I would prefer to be well, obviously we always want good cosplay, but I personally believe that the obsession for having the perfect screen accurate cosplay is a tad restrictive. And this is coming from, and like, I consider myself a pretty traditionalist in terms of like getting things pretty close to cosplay and whatever, but like full lab grabbing like models for the games and like using that as your basis of your costuming and whatever, I actually don't just necessarily go for that, mostly because if you like, I mean, it's kind of obvious. A lot of video game women aren't shaped like a lot of other women. I'm not shaped like a video game woman. So I do not want to use a weapon that I just, you know, grab the model from the video game. I don't want to use the armor that I just grabbed from a video game. I don't want to use the prop I just grabbed from the video game. In terms of my proportions, it won't look right. And so I still hold on to that. I still believe in the truth of that, and that is my way of cosplay. I know in Naruto they had this big thing about the ninja way and whatever, so like, that's not my way of a ninja, that's my way of a cosplayer. It's kind of hilarious that I'm even bringing this up, because I've never watched Naruto. Well, I never really watched Naruto. My knowledge of Naruto is the stuff that I casually... Yeah, well, like, especially nowadays, like, a lot of cosplay photos have been specifically filtered, or they use special effects and so on to make themselves look like the anime character. It's really also super popular in, like, East Asia-ish, if that makes sense. It's a more societal expected and normalized thing to use a lot of filters on your photos, because, I don't know, yeah, it's not my preference. For me at least, a lot of the beauty of cosplay is seeing a real life person, seeing like it being a real life person, if that makes sense, like knowing, like seeing, oh hey, that's a human underneath. When you have too many filters on it, you start looking kind of doll-like, and I know that's the effect that they're going for, but personally speaking, that's just not how I necessarily like my cosplay photography. But that's me. You know, you do you. Feel free to do whatever your little heart pleases. Also, I don't know. It's just, I think some of my apprehension for that too is because I had a friend. Well, she's still my friend. have a friend, but she no longer believes in this because I talked to her about it. I have a friend who used to be really, really upset by all these cosplay images on Instagram because she wanted to look like them, but she felt like she was unable to. She'd constantly talk about how beautiful they were, how perfect the proportions they were, and whatever. And I had to point out to her that a lot of them have been specifically altered, the photos have been specifically altered to look like that. And, you know, that kind of helped her get over that, you know, a little bit with her self-esteem and whatever. So that's part of my other thing too, is that I personally find that a couple, it's not everyone, but some people can be really affected mentally by those images, and I really don't want that type of behavior to become the go-to behavior in the cosplay community, because I just don't think it's a very healthy precedent. I feel like that was a lot of words to just say. Filter your photos if you want. Just maybe, I don't know, maybe we should have us just have a social media discourse thing, you know, don't, you know, don't compare yourself to other people on the internet. Maybe that's actually the true solution. I just personally think that, I just personally think, yeah, yeah, that's also, it's also, like, kind of a difficult thing for me. I mean, it's not, like, I've definitely watched a lot of video discourse about, like, plastic surgery and whatever, especially from a, shall we say, a more feministy take on it and so on. Because it's kind of an interesting balance, right? Because on one hand, yeah, you should be able to do whatever you want with your body, right? But on the other hand, what you're doing for your body is to set up to these kind of ridiculous society norms, which is maybe not the greatest thing in the world. And then it just goes on and on and on. Most people just automatically just kind of say at the end, just do what makes you happy. I also kind of believe that. I just think maybe a little bit of a caveat in my thing is like, do what makes you happy, but if you say, you know, if someone asks you, hey, I mean, like, just be upfront about it, you know, just be like, yeah, you know, I had plastic surgery. I had a boob job. I had a butt job. I got my face chiseled to look like a certain way. I don't think that's necessarily, you know, I think that's my view on it. I don't want to plastic surgery, because also, like, Overlord Rose kind of brought it up, and I think that's also kind of a point too. There are some people who need this plastic surgery to feel more comfortable in their bodies, and like that's a very necessary thing for them. And I don't want to be like, all plastic surgery is bad then, because clearly there's some people who need it to feel comfortable with themselves. Um, so, like, I don't know. I guess just ultimately, I believe you should just be open about it. If someone if someone asks you about it, just be like, "Oh yeah, had that done," and then just keep on moving. I think going on and on about whether or not, oh, is this person overly photoshopped? Is this person so? Also, the problem is too, is yeah, most of the time, if you're gonna be really, really skinny, you don't generally have big boobs, because boobs are generally made out of fat. If you're really, really skinny, you don't have that much fat, so maybe. But there's also people who just have really big boobs and they're super duper skinny, and that's totally fine. And it's kind of crappy that people are like, oh my god, did you get plastic surgery? Because, you know, that's just who they are. So, I don't know. I don't want to say I don't think it's necessarily I mean, it's kind of a complicated topic, but ultimately it's a complicated question and potentially complicated answers, but I think ultimately my view on all of this boils down to a very simple: do what makes you happy. And try and make other people, you know, try and make sure that other people are also happy. Maybe that's kind of a lame response, and that might be a very that's a very simplistic answer to what could lead to very complicated behavior, but I also cannot see any other way to make a suitable answer for that type of question. Like, you know, I mean, I guess you could go into the complexities about that, right? You could always go into the complexities about that, but I think the problem about going super complex into that, yeah, maybe. I mean, also I think that depends. That's very dependent on your tastes, perhaps. You know, me personally, I'm a bit more of a butt person than a boob person. So you know, your mileage may vary.